1, 2, 3, funk it.
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, welcome back to my video. Still with me, Cicio, Melani, Anggi, Triyana, Putri. In this video, I would like to present material about material development. So, let's just move on to the video. The first material is material development. The term materials development refers to all the different process in the development and use of materials for language learning and teaching. And then material is any systematic description of the techniques and exercises to be used in classroom teaching. Materials are anything that can be used by language learners to facilitate their learning of the target language. So, materials could be a course book, a CD-ROM, a story, a song, a video, a cartoon, a dictionary, a mobile phone interaction, a lecture, or even a photograph used to simulate a discussion. They could also be an exercise, an activity, a task, a presentation, or even a project. Materials can be informative, experiential, eliciting, or exploratory. Materials can also be in design, as design in action or in reflection. The next materials is material evaluation. Material evaluation is a procedure that involves attempting to predict or measure the value of the effect of language learning materials on their users. The next materials is the principles and procedures of materials evaluation. These are the important things we should know when developing materials. The first one is establish a team, even if there are only two of you, so that beliefs can be shared and debated. Second, brainstorm your beliefs by first of all individually listing at random what you believe best facilitates language acquisition and development, and then by comparing the list and producing a new list of commonly held beliefs. And then number 3, categorize your beliefs by grouping them under headings, and then convert your beliefs into universal criteria by turning them into questions that attempt to predict the likely effects of the materials on their users. And then next, develop a set of local criteria by first creating a profile of the learning context of the target learners and then deriving criteria from it. And then develop a set of medium-specific criteria by first listing important aspects of the medium being used and then deriving criteria from them. The last one, combine the 3 sets of criteria in a way which will make it easy to use them. And then, when reviewing materials, if you are reviewing your team's materials during their development, it is important that you make use of the criteria you developed prior to starting to write them. It is also important that you review the materials that you have written and that other members of the team review them too. Then, when trialing materials, trialing depends on the goodwill of the teachers invited to trial the materials, and therefore asking them to conduct a multi-criteria evaluation is out of the question. When selecting materials, in any selection procedure for an institution or especially for a nation, that a formal criterion reference procedure is followed. This means going through the 7-stage procedure recommended for writing and evaluating materials above and comparing the grades and comments for each book evaluated before making a selection. And then, when adapting materials, formal adaptation for an institution or nation require the formal 7-stage evaluation procedure prior to decision about adaptation. It is important that suggestions for adaptation are included in the comments column of the evaluation table. And then, when using materials, it can be very revealing to evaluate materials as they are being used either as a teacher using the materials with a class or as an observer watching materials being used. Obviously, we cannot observe acquisition taking place, and there are many criteria from a pre-use evaluation which would not be answerable in a real-use observation. The last one is after using materials. Post-use evaluation of the effects of materials is the most revealing form of materials evaluation, but it is also the least common. This is probably because such an evaluation is inevitably time-consuming and demanding of expertise. The next materials is materials adaptation. It is a general term for the process that involves making changes to existing materials to better suit specific learners, teachers, and contexts for the purpose of facilitating effective learning. And then scope and range of adaptation. Adaptation may manifest itself in wide-ranging ways, depending on the agent of change, the reasons, the objectives, and the timing. On the one hand, adaptation may be very small in scales, as in a teacher's intuitive, spontaneous, and reactive actions in a particular class. The growing significance of adaptation. Is adaptation a necessity or an option? The answer is very significant, but we now need to rephrase our response as phenomenally significant. Traditionally, materials adaptation has been known as small changes that a lot of teachers make in some form or another which are not well studied or supported in the literature or in training courses. Who does adaptation? A growing number of publications, conference presentations, and some international teacher development courses seems to focus on adaptation conducted by teachers. Why do teachers adapt materials? There are 5 factors. First, teaching environment, such as national, regional, institutional, cultural level, and etc. And then second is learners, such as age, language level, prior learning experience, learning style, or etc. Number 3 is teachers, like personality, teaching styles, belief about language learning and teaching, or etc. Number 4 is course, such as objectives, syllabus, intended outcomes, or etc. The last one is materials, such as text, talks, activities, visuals, teacher book, multimedia extras, or etc. So how do teachers adapt materials? There are 7 steps. First, profiling of teaching context, and then identifying reasons for adaptation, then evaluating the existing materials, and then listing objectives for adaptation, and then adapting, then teaching, and then revising. There are some principles and procedures of materials adaptation. The first one is match the needs of the target learners, and then match the wants of the target learners, then make relevant connection with the learner's lives, then stimulate affective engagement, stimulate cognitive engagement, provide achievable challenge, provide exposure to language in use, provide opportunities to use the target language for communication, and then provide opportunities for learners to notice and make discoveries about how the target language is typically used, and then the last is provide enough varied recycling. The next materials is about the development of materials. The first one is principled development of materials. The principles suggest include the first, the language experience needs to be contextualized and comprehensible. Then, the learner needs to be motivated, relaxed, positive, and engaged. And then, the language and discourse features available for potential acquisition need to be silent, meaningful, and frequently encountered. Then, the learner needs to achieve deep and multidimensional processing of the language. Then, recommendation for developing materials. There are working as a team, articulating principles, making use of framework, and then text-driven framework. What should we do in working as a team? The first one is recruit 20 or more team members, recruit only enthusiastic volunteers, recruit mainly teachers rather than academics, and then ensure a mix of age, skills, and experience. Then get the team to write its materials together in the same place rather than at a distance. The last one is appoint an experienced leader who can stimulate the writers and help to establish principles and a flexible framework on the first day before becoming a member of a small advisory or monitoring team. And then articulating principles. After assembling the team of writers, the next step is to articulate the principles which you intend to drive your materials. This is best done by brainstorming individually, then sharing and justifying your principles, then agreeing together on a common set of principles, and then converting the principles into criteria to be used both in the development and the evaluation of the draft materials. Then making use of frameworks. We have found that taking time to decide on principled and flexible frameworks prior to starting to write the materials not only helps to achieve coherence and consistency, but actually saves the writers time once they have got used to making use of the frameworks. And then text-driven frameworks. The first one is select a core text suitable for the target learners, then experience the text again as a reader or listener or viewer rather than as a materials developer looking for teaching points. Then reflect on your experience of the text and in particular on what was happening in your mind so that you can create a similar experience for your learners to replace their likely inclination to study a text word by word. And then create a readiness activity that could activate the learner's minds in relation to the topic, theme, setting, etc. of the core text. Then create an initial response activity that could help the learners to experience the text holistically rather than to start decoding it word by word as soon as they encounter it. And then next, create an intake response activity that helps the learners to deepen and articulate their personal response to the text. Then create a development activity in which the learners use the core text as a springboard to meaningful language production of their own. Then create an input response activity in which the learner return to the text to deepen their understanding of it or to make discoveries about how language is used in it. Then the last is create instructions to get the students to revise the product of the development activity. The last materials is about procedure for materials development. The first is brainstorm your principles of language acquisition. Then use your principles to develop a set of universal criteria for the development and evaluation of your unit. Then write a brief profile of your target learners. Then use your profile to develop a set of local criteria for the development and evaluation of your units. Then use your criteria to decide on a flexible framework to drive your units of your material. Then use your framework to develop an initial draft of unit. Use your criteria to evaluate your units. And if possible, show your criteria and your units to a colleague and invite their feedback. Then revise your unit and then use your unit with a class. And then evaluate your unit again in the light of student response to it. then revise your unit again. Then the last one, evaluate the procedure you used to develop your materials and make any modification you think you will improve it before developing other units of materials. So, this is the end of my video. Hope you guys understand what I have explained about, and thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and share this video.
1, 2, 3.